But ladies and gentlemen, before I begin in any way, please allow me to firstly acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. And I pay my respect to the elders of past and present. Excellencies, Abel Guterres, Ambassador for Timor-Leste, and I believe Luis Marcos, the Member of Parliament, Federal Member for Macquarie, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank CDI for the invitation to deliver the prestigious CDI annual address this year. And I should inform you all that I initially accepted the invitation with some excitement, knowing that I would address a good audience, and that is a dream for many politicians in PNG. But I soon did a little background check on CDI, the annual address, and it was the facts I discovered about this occasion that made me hesitate a little. It kept me thinking for a while, especially the list of speakers since its inception in 1998. You know, those men who came before me were indeed great men. They were highly eminent and very well distinguished statesmen. They have been leaders and champions in democracy around the world. And these great men have, in fact, spent a good part of their lives in the service of their respective governments. And they served long enough to be astute, and they spoke with authority and confidence on issues relevant to democracy. And therefore, as I reflected on myself, I must admit that I feel I'm not qualified to stand here before this great audience tonight. And I feel that I may not be able to deliver an address up to the same level that they did, because unlike them, I do not have that many years of experience, which I feel should qualify me to speak here. So please bear with me, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm not able to confidently embrace this podium. And if I deliver below your expectation, then please excuse me. However, I find a little relief in the fact that, like my predecessors, I carry within me something special that they also carry deep within their hearts. And that is a deep conviction for their nation. A nation that must operate on a set of principles. The principles of good governance, transparency, and accountability to the people. They believe in a government that is birthed from people, and a government that works for people, and a government that reports back to the people. And this man believes in the system of governance, which I also believe in very strongly, called democracy. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am of the view that since my country gained independence in 1975, we have never had any serious challenge to democracy, and I stand to be corrected on this by many of you learned Papua New Guineans on this subject, and maybe our founding fathers as well. Maybe you can give us a proper account and detailed analysis of my view. Like all nations, we also have faced our share of problems and challenges in this endeavor to embrace what I call this Western concept in our young nation. It is my strong view that before I proceed to talk about the challenges of democracy in our nation and what role Parliament can play, I should remind you that long before the West brought what they call civilization to our people, our own people existed in a system that ensured their existence. And they survived since time immemorial. Many in the West do not appreciate that fact. Traditionally, ours has always been a system of communalism, where there was no individual ownership right to anything, and where the principles of sharing and caring ensured that our communities thrived. And individual success was communal benefit. It was a structure that has evolved over many, many years, and has effectively sustained us for generations. However, whilst we are trying to practice democracy, our communal principles have found their way into our systems and are now comfortably embedded in our governance practice. Hence, from time to time, it's surfacing its face through what we call the one-talk system and other forms. And this is the problem that we as a nation have to deal with. It is indeed, in my view, a challenge to democracy. Generally, it has been challenging and difficult for many countries in the Pacific and mostly outside the West that are struggling to promote and adopt the Western liberal, free-thinking, and representative form of democratic system of governance. My country is no exception. We have seen the Bougainville crisis and the recent 2011 political impasse, just to name two. And take, for instance, the fair elections, which is a fundamental feature of a democratic government. However, in my country, it remains a big challenge, as a host of other factors influence supporters' and voters' preferences, which many a times results in wrong choices of political leaders. Hence, poor political leadership is evident in widespread corruption, and mismanagement continues to impact negatively on the democratic system or democracy in PNG. I am sure that we began well as a nation in 1975 in our pursuit for self-governance and political independence. However, early into our independence as a nation, the realization of the opportunities and powers in a democratic system of government gave rise to a crop of leaders who, whilst appreciating the principles of democracy, they lacked the conviction to uphold the principles of the system. And that allowed them to be influenced by our traditional cultural systems of governance, and that overtook them. So many of them took the opportunity of the mandate of the people as the guardians of people's power to abuse the system so as to satisfy their cultural obligation, the obligation of sharing and caring. And at the same time, many built their personal wealth, because we also have the big man status. And those leaders promoted a culture and mentality that has since propagated the evil of corruption that has since threatened the principles and future of democracy in PNG. And I should add here that this has redefined also our traditional Melanesian systems as well. To most political leaders during those years of the mid-1980s and early 2000s, the well-being and the interest of the majority of the constituents did not mean anything to them. One of the results of the past is reflected today in the weak capacity of the state of institutions to deliver services for the majority of our people. And our parliament is one such institution that is failing to live up to its objectives as a Westminster system of government. Now I would like to turn to parliament. It's one institution that is the hub of Western concept of democracy. In an ideal democracy, a parliament is rightly considered the bastion of the people's power. Among all other institutions of the state, it is the parliament which reflects the will and the aspirations of a people. Hence, the people should have confidence that it is there to serve them. My initial perception, and that of many Papua New Guineans, is that the national parliament in PNG is weak. It has been for years riddled with massive and widespread corruption, and I am not ashamed to say this. Therefore, when I assumed the role of the head of the legislature, I instituted a general compliance assessment of the parliamentary services, because I wanted to ascertain the level and degree of the system's collapse, which came about as a result of years of abuse that have been perpetrated by successive administrations. And the findings were shocking, ladies and gentlemen. The investigations revealed that over the years, parliamentary services has been grossly operating outside the Public Finance Management Act, the Parliamentary Services Act, and the other statutory instruments. Also, at the beginning of this year, of course with the help of CDI, a team from Queensland Parliament, together with Solomon Islands Parliament, conducted an assessment of the chamber and related services in PNG Parliament. The report also revealed a lot of inadequacies, especially the chamber services, compared to that of the Queensland Parliament and the Solomon Islands Parliament. And I have since had the opportunity to visit your parliament here in Australia, and also in the Queensland Parliament, and this week in the Australian National Parliament. And I can see that the principle of democracy is reflected not only in the design of your parliament, but most importantly, it is truly alive as demonstrated in your leaders when they subject themselves to the people's wishes and truly and faithfully serve the people's interests. In a working democracy like yours, a parliamentarian's role is clearly identified and understood. The Member of Parliament has a representative role, an oversight role, and of course, the legislative role. In my country, the above is not quite the case, and there are reasons that I want you to appreciate. Our people have begun, I would say, on a wrong footing early after independence, as I alluded to in the earlier part of my discussion. This has resulted in a perception issue. We have a perception issue that members have to manage in relation to our parliamentary democratic defined role as opposed to the expectation of the Melanesian cultured and oriented people mindset. Our people, including the parliamentarians, ourselves, we have over time developed a misconstrued perception that members of parliaments are deliverers of goods and services. Sometimes we are seen as the answer to all the people's lives issues. And if we fail to deliver, then we are seen as the single cause for the unfortunate state of affairs. And as a result, many members have since been operating as project managers and cash deliverers. That is as opposed to our mandated and most central role as legislators. So if we fail to live up to the people's expectation, it is reflected in the high tenure of MPs during elections. Therefore, it is my firm conviction that if we are to fix our nation, we must first fix this particular problem. The need to shift our people's mindset from the politicians as delivery agents to the parliamentarian in its strict sense is now very critical. And amidst this confusion over the roles of the members of parliament, if and when National Parliament meets, the executive government, with its numerical strength in collaboration with the Speaker, have dictated parliamentary business. On many occasions in the past, important pieces of legislation were never properly debated. In the last 4 years, they were almost instantly bulldozed through. Serious manipulation and abuse of the standing orders were the order of nearly every second parliament sitting. Even notice papers on bills were not circulated on time to give the members an appreciation of what they were supposed to debate on the floor. And in a more personal experience, I was part of a parliamentary system for 4 years that never functioned. The committee existed only in name. Ladies and gentlemen, the list of the problems we face are numerous, and I should not bog you down with my frustrations. However, I believe that if you want to be an agent of change, then you must be frustrated enough to correct the wrongs. And these frustrations led me to ask those questions like, why am I here in Parliament? What really is my role as an MP? And what does the Parliament exist for? What is the role of Parliament? And as I began to find answers to these questions, I sensed there was a vacuum, a disconnection that existed between a parliamentarian's mandated role and the Parliament itself. There was also a disconnection between the member as a mandated leader and the parliamentary service system that was supposed to serve and equip me as a member to deliver my responsibilities. And therefore, it was against the above challenges that I set out to take corrective actions. I have a vision now, ladies and gentlemen, and that is to restore, reform, and modernize our national parliament in PNG. I believe it is only when we have a robust parliament with members effectively performing their roles inconsistent with the conventional practice of democracy, like that I have seen in Australia, then can PNG as a nation address the challenges of democracy and strengthen its practices. And I speak with confidence tonight because I speak in faith. And because there are many young leaders in PNG today, in this parliament, who are just as determined as I am to see that we restore democracy and allow good governance in our nation. I wish to quote a text from the Bible that states, people without vision perish. And ladies and gentlemen, that means they will die and they will cease to exist. In this sense, a nation without vision is good as dead. Where there is no vision, there is no direction, no strategy, subsequently no results. In another part of the Bible, it says, write down the vision so that those who see it will run with you all the way to the finish line. And this means if we do have a vision, then we are to write it down and share it with those who are with us. I am doing that tonight. My vision is to see a restored PNG Parliament that must begin to take form and shape during these next few years. Let me now take a few moments to share with you what I imagine our Parliament should be like. I see a Parliament where members are making good laws, and the laws are made through an exhaustive process like yours in Australia. I would like to see a Parliament where the committee system are revitalized and fully functioning. I want a Parliament where sessions operate on an annual sitting calendar. And I guess if a Parliament has an annual sitting calendar, it then forms the base for the entire government system to operate around. I want us to visualize a Parliament where standing orders are not manipulated and tampered with. I'm already seeing a Parliament where many good things are happening, where notice papers are going out in advance so that members have enough time to digest, research, and to prepare for constructive debate in Parliament. And also I want to see a Parliament that promotes thriving, positive, inter-parliamentary relations for the purpose of transferring appropriate knowledge and other benefits. And I'm grateful that we have an existing relationship with Australia and, of course, the CDI and other important partners. I see an open Parliament where essential information about Parliament is made accessible to all citizens. I must state that the restored and reformed PNG Parliament will come out of a restored and reformed individual members of Parliament and also the workforce in Parliament. And as such, I acknowledge and inform this gathering that we have a new clerk in Parliament, someone who have come into Parliament from outside of the public sector, outside of Parliament, from the public sector. And that is a break from the tradition from the past where we have always had a clerk appointed from within the system of Parliament. And I believe that is a good indication. So you might ask, what am I doing to make this vision become a reality? Ladies and gentlemen, I have introduced a sitting calendar already, identifying in advance the sitting days for the Parliament, and that is after a long, long time in PNG Parliament. I will establish a select committee on parliamentary reforms whose task will be to do a total review of the standing orders and to review the parliamentary committee system. I have learned and understood our standing orders and am ensuring strict application on the floor of the House. I am giving a fair go to everybody on the floor of the Parliament, to the opposition members the right to speak on the floor, as well as the government. And you know the opposition is greatly reduced in PNG, in the PNG Parliament. But I have to play a role to level the playing field so that they can effectively participate. I am in the chamber on time for every Parliament sitting since August 2012. I have made it clear to my fellow members, including the Prime Minister, that I expect them to be on time too. I have committed to a public education program that will open the doors of Parliament to the wider PNG community. And 2 weeks ago, I hosted a first visit by a Provincial Executive Council to the National Parliament. And I explained the role of Parliament to the local government council presidents. I have signed the PNG Parliament to an open Parliament project, which will be run by Transparency International and which will shine a light on the workings of Parliament and on the members for all Papua New Guinea to see. And for that, I thank the European Union for funding this project. I also have restored a twinning arrangement with the Queensland Parliament as one of the initiatives to restore the systems of our Parliament. More so, my administration is already translating the vision into a corporate plan. Again, the first time that has happened in 37 years. PNG Parliament has never had a corporate plan. From this will emanate a complete overhaul of the Parliament's corporate structure. The plan and the new structure are important tools to guide us towards a dream to restore, reform, and modernize our Parliament. In the greater national picture, ladies and gentlemen, the Parliament undoubtedly plays the engine room role to drive changes many of us aspire for our country. Again, the National Parliament is the hub for national transformation activity. It is the single most important entity through which noble dreams of great men and women are birthed and translated into reality through the laws that it makes. And I took up the challenge to become a political leader because I aspire, as with many young Papua New Guineans, many who are here tonight also. We want to see our nation transform from a backward, underdeveloped, and third world condition to a nation of financial freedom and social prosperity. This is also the dream for many other Papua New Guineans. And there is a price tag for such a dream, ladies and gentlemen. The price is sacrifice and commitment. And I am willing to pay that price to build an efficient and effective parliamentary service that will provide high-quality advice and support to the members of Parliament so that they can be able to perform their roles fully. And I believe it is only when the National Parliament is restored, reformed, and modernized that our people's development needs and aspirations will be effectively met in the practical realities of the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, in my view, Papua New Guinea as a nation still needs to find a way to embrace and entrench democratic practices in government, and also to ensure our citizens adequately appreciate the ideals of democracy and knowledge of the Westminster system of government. PNG still faces the challenges to its young democracy as it tries to fiddle with the two conflicting extremes and the demands. Our traditional leadership structure based on our traditional and cultural practices that run contrary to the practices of our adopted government system, which we call democracy. It will take a long time for us to deal with those challenges, and I want to do my bit, starting with restoring, reforming, and modernizing the National Parliament. I now acknowledge the meaningful assistance and support provided by many of our stakeholders, of which many are here tonight. The Australian National Parliament, the Australian government through CDI, and others, and I look forward for your continued support in the days to come. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. May God bless you.